Hello everyone, boa noite a todos. Vamos falar em inglês, eu vou tentar não cair do palco primeiro. Muito obrigada a todos, a toda a gente. So I will speak in English now, so that of course Nida can follow everything. Thank you. Also, thank you to Teatro do Bairro for hosting this, and of course to LEFFEST'. It's incredible that a festival like this can choose and put together all these part of the festival, which is the Palestinian cycle. So, a big applause for the LEFFEST' for this. Because of course, what's been happening since 7 October, it lives with us. It's always with us, and it's part of the festival as it is a part, I think, of everything that we are doing here together. When we talked with LEFFEST' about possibilities for this festival, and I mentioned Nida, Ibrahim, they immediately welcomed this idea, and she's here. It looks amazing, because the last time we met, it was in Ramallah. We first, I have to thank Dima Mohammed. She gave me the number of, thank you Dima. She gave me the number of Nida when I went to Palestine in last December, and but then we met in Bethlehem by chance. Yes. And suddenly we were there.
Yes, because Dima told me that you're coming to Palestine, and Dima, by the way, shout out, she's a great Palestinian activist here in Lisbon and has been a great support for me throughout. Thank you, Dima. But yes, when I saw you, I recognized you by coincidence. You had your phone, it was without charge. And
exactly. We were both trying to cover the Christmas in Bethlehem, and so immediately Nida helped me, and so we didn't need much to get together. And then, so this was like 24th September, it was Christmas Eve, and then we met again the last day
of the year,
the year in Ramallah to do this interview for Público. Which was published, well, to say from the beginning, so Nida Ibrahim, she's a reporter from Al Jazeera station. I think everyone here knows that Al Jazeera has been banned in Israel, and since September also the office where Nida worked in Ramallah, when I was talking with her, this office was invaded in the middle of the night in September. Last September, it was invaded by Israeli soldiers, and it was closed. So, Nida, she was born and raised in Bethlehem, and she, in the height of the second Intifada, she was watching the news, and she was following Al Jazeera, reporters like Shireen Abu Bakr, and being inspired by people like Shireen Abu Bakr, and then she became a reporter. And of course, Shireen, she was killed by Israeli soldiers in Jenin camp in 2022, so before 7 October. And maybe we can start our conversation to understand what is the situation right now, because of course the office of Ramallah office is closed, but maybe I can just read you here some short data about the journalists that have been killed. So after Shireen Abu Bakr, the Committee to Protect Journalists, which is a US-based group monitoring human rights violations against journalists worldwide, mentions that at least 129 media workers were killed in the conflict between 7 October 23 and 4 October 24, okay? The organization is also investigating a further 130 cases of suspected killings, detentions, and injuries. The group says it's the deadliest period for journalists since it began its documentation. So we have no memory of a time in journalism when so many journalists were killed. This data is conservative compared to the number of journalists reported killed by the Palestinian Health Ministry, which has estimated that at least 188 journalists were killed between 7 October 2023 and 6 October 2024. These numbers don't include the number of Lebanese reporters that were also killed. And I know there are Lebanese here in the room also, so we are all together in this, Lebanese and Palestinians. It's part of the same story. Nida, thank you very, very much for being here. Let's start by what happened to Al Jazeera and what happened in September when the place where you worked was invaded and closed, and what happened since then?
As tragic as it was that our offices were invaded, it did not come as a surprise, because in May, the Israeli forces have closed Al Jazeera from reporting inside Israel and from broadcasting from there. And then that ban kept getting extended and extended. But on September, there was a military order, because the occupied West Bank is under the rule of the military governor, to shut down the offices in Ramallah. Our colleagues were there because there was news, and they were coming from all over to keep reporting the story. And then they saw the Israeli soldiers coming in, going up to the office, and they asked everyone to leave. And they stayed for a couple of hours before they left. After they've welded shut the entrance of the office, they took the doors. We had beautiful doors with Al Jazeera sign on them. I don't know if they liked them or what was the, yeah. And they brought, as our bureau chief Walid Al-Umri likes to say, bad iron, bad metal to weld it. They couldn't have brought something like looking decent. And then they put up a paper saying that they confiscated certain laptops, broadcasting equipment. But I think the message was clear. They did not want Al Jazeera to continue reporting, and they did not want a reminder of what they've been doing to journalists, because shortly after they entered the office and they gave the bureau chief the military order saying that they should shut down because it's a place where terror activities are being held, they tore down the poster of Shireen Abu Aqla. And you know, one of the comments I read says, it was not because of anything, but because they tore her poster because of what they did to her, not what she did to them. So it was a reminder of the Israeli violations against Palestinians, but it like add insult to injury when they are tearing down this huge poster of hers. We had lights on it. Even if you're passing by the Ramallah Bureau at night, you would see it. Shireen was not any other journalist. You know, people can tell when the journalist or the reporter or the storyteller or even the artist is doing it from the heart. That's why Shireen was called the daughter of Palestine, the voice of truth, because you could feel that every story she made, she would put her heart in it, not just because she was doing a reportage. And her killing already devastated her colleagues, especially the ones who were with her day in and day out. But imagine now, when you didn't think that more could happen, we see 188 media workers being killed in Gaza. And what's happening? I mean, we thought that when she was killed, okay, PR crisis for Israel. They came out with 7 different narratives. First, it was the Palestinian fighters who killed her. Second, it was we didn't see, or like a confrontation. And then you had every newspaper in the planet coming and doing the forensics and doing the reports and figuring out that there was no way but an Israeli sniper who had killed her. And then they issue a sorry. But then they continue. And on top of all of that, they come shut down the office where she works, where actually her office became some sort of a place of love where people came, drawing paintings of hers, coming to give flowers, candles. It's just, you cannot manufacture that love. This just, comes from the people to you because they feel that you're genuine. And we have no access to that. We have lost already Shireen. We are losing our people in Gaza. And now we are losing our voices because you're being told, shut up or else. What do you do as a journalist in that place? And for me, the facts are the facts. The story will be told, whether Al Jazeera's banned or I'm banned or whoever is arrested as a journalist. But what message is Israel trying to get to the world? What are you scared of? And if with all of that number of journalists being killed, you still see people going to the field. I have colleagues who go to Jenin day in and day out, and just 2 weeks ago, one of them got injured in the abdomen, and it's just nothing will stop them from telling the story. So, it's just fascinating how journalists and people just keep choosing hope, keep choosing life, keep choosing wanting to stay and to persevere and to keep telling their stories to the world. Now, is the world doing anything? If I tell you the truth, when I go to places like Jenin, like Nablus, like Tulkarem, people love Al Jazeera, but they tell you, okay, you can tell our story, but what's the point? We've been telling the same story for 70 years. And yes, everyone comes and tries to do or tell the story in a different way, in a different form, but the main story, the core issue is very clear. And you would excuse these people for saying, okay, fine, you do this interview, so what? You see a bereaved mother who just lost her child, who was able to identify him from his clothes because, the Israeli forces took the bodies with them. So she sees pictures and she keeps looking, oh yeah, I think this is the shoes of my son. And you try and put the microphone and get her to talk. First of all, morally, for me, am I interrupting a very sacred moment of sadness and of loss? And second of all, really, for what? Yes, I know we talk about hope, we talk about the stories after the war being conveyed and in a way that we didn't think it would make that such echo. But still, you will excuse people's feelings of despair and helplessness.
What happened last week? You want to?
Yeah, last week they renewed the closure order for another 45 days. This time, no parade or no big military jeeps. It was just a flyer that they threw to extend the military order to close down Al Jazeera's offices in Ramallah and the occupied West Bank for another 45 days, which, in Israel that has been the case. But the difference between the closure in Israel and in the West Bank is that in Israel it was civil court that is dealing with the issue that Palestinians are appealing to, but I mean Al Jazeera as well. But here in the occupied West Bank, you have a military order that, you know, it's just it's more difficult and it has different ramifications. That's why it's making you know, going forward really complicated.
Just to say that we are going to open to questions, because we really would like that this opportunity would be an opportunity for a lot of people to ask questions to Nida. So I'll try not to. I have a long list of questions, but I will try to just ask a couple more, and then we'll pass the micro on, okay? And if someone doesn't feel comfortable to speak in English, you can do it in Portuguese, and I'll try to translate. But Nida was, of course, talking about this point, which is something that I think all reporters, at some point, they ask themselves, what's the point? I mean, Palestinians have been telling their stories to foreign reporters. It's been ages. Receiving them with utmost hospitality, always giving everything, opening their houses. And this story has been told generations and after generations. So after 7 October, and you were also addressing this, what's the point? But we also maybe can try to see the changes. This is still happening. All this genocide, all this Holocaust is happening, but there were changes. Would you say? Do you think that the way in which the world is following this, the way in which they are listening or not listening, and we have some signs that maybe there's a change, what is your feeling?
I think when we are inside these Israeli raids in the West Bank, it's hard to see any hope. It's hard to see any future, and that the public pressure is doing much. Also, when you see what's happening in Gaza day in and day out, it's a televised, live broadcasted genocide. But when you zoom out a little bit and you look at the broader picture, and especially when I got to travel, the sentiment is different. I'm no longer saying to people, I'm from Palestine, not Pakistan. That's good, a good start. But yes, you definitely see that there's hope. For me, I saw it in two ways: the young generation and the social media. We still get algorithm, you know, suppressing us, the shadow banning, the accounts being deleted, Palestinians trying to find ways how to maneuver these bans by, instead of writing Palestine, you would put some symbols instead of certain letters to avoid the algo. And you see how the young generation is using social media in such a fast way and proving and showing evidence of what's happening. In a way, I feel like we cut the middleman, which was the mainstream media and the establishment that would want you to see everything filtered through the system. And now it's like people have the agency to tell their own story in their own words, in their own way. And that has helped a lot in getting people to see one another directly without the intervention of the traditional mainstream media that would filter it or would put people on TV just to ask them if they condemn Hamas or not as a start. So I think the framing is changing a little bit. I think the awareness of people in the world is what at least I am counting on, and I know many others are. Yes, we are desperate. Yes, we are in despair. Yes, no one thought that, you know, more than a year and 1 month of this war, and it's still continuing unabated. Not only that, it's expanding now to Lebanon and elsewhere. But if I were to tell you something, is that if you're not doing anything, you're letting down the 6-year-olds that I see in places like Jenin, in places like Tur Karim, who are really hoping for a better world. I remember I interviewed a fighter, Palestinian fighter in Jenin a few years ago, and I was like, a stupid question, but I had to ask it, what do you do for fun? What would you do if Palestine is liberated? He's like, I don't know. Because he's never had the chance to imagine life without checkpoints, borders, war, pain. And this is a person who was 20 years old and has never been to the sea. And his family was expelled from their homes in Haifa and in Jaffa. So these are the sons and the daughters of the sea. But now they have not even been there once. They don't know what life is beyond the pain and the destruction, the continued destruction. So when they blow up and when they hold arms and when they resist, it's not because they're choosing death over life. It's because look at the life that they're living under occupation. I mean, for me, if I was not a Palestinian, I mean, I'm not tall enough to be a model, but I like to dress up, I like to go, I'd like to dance. Maybe I could have been a dancer. But because of where I am jumping between bullets in Jenin, having my mom call me. Thank God she's not like a very worried mom. But it's like, it's not the most ideal thing to do. Like if I am an adrenaline junkie, maybe I would have done more skydiving in my life than I am chasing, you know, the stories in Jenin and Tur Karim. But that's the core issue. It's like, we're just like you. We just, it's painful that we want to say that to the world. And in the back of my mind, when I do stories, like I have to think, oh yeah, I want to tell them we're humans. What else are we going to be, you know? But it's like you feel that you are put in a position where you have to defend your humanity and to show that you're just as cool as the rest of the world.
I think it's the first time, and I'm much older than Nida, and I can't remember, and I really can't remember, and before me also I don't think it happened, that all journalists in the world could not enter a place to cover something like it's happening. So in the beginning, of course, we talked about all these deaths, and we don't even know about the injuries and so many consequences. But there is also this, I mean, this is also unheard of. Like, it didn't happen, never. Like, journalists, since 7 October, journalists are not being allowed to do their work, to enter Gaza and report. Only journalists that are embedded with the Israeli army, and that means censorship, and that means all the movements being controlled by the soldiers.
That
by
means
the army.
when the Israeli army spokesperson shows you a list of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and the journalist still broadcast it as these are the Hamas members who are trying to do the attacks in a Shifa hospital. This is what embed means, that you don't verify, you don't check, not all the time. So if I'm being filmed. But, you know, if you're there, you have to show the military the report before it goes out.
Yeah. And
you don't double and triple check. Sorry, I cut you.
Yeah, no, of course, it's not free journalism. It's so no journalist entered Gaza to work freely since 7 October 2023, and this is unheard of.
No foreign journalists.
No, of course, no foreign journalists. Yes,
because we have to remember that as far as, I talk about risk for Palestinians in the occupied West Bank, and we lost Shireen, but you have to remember that journalists in the besieged Gaza Strip are the reason why we know of the atrocities that are still happening until now, doing everything they can. Young women whose families have left the besieged Gaza Strip, but they're still there because they want to keep telling the story. And this is, for me, like, I take courage from them.
Yes, so they are the ones who are paying all the price. At the same time, no one can really say that it doesn't know what's happening because of them, because they are the ones who are documenting everything. And this, you talked about the new generation, but I also think it's completely unheard of. It's unique. I can't also remember something that it's in the minds and in the lives of so many young people all over the world. And it's absolutely amazing to see that, more than a year passed, a year and a month, we are still here, but also this young generation is still here. And this is, I would like to believe this is a big change, something for the future. But of course, people are alive now. We need answers now, we need acts immediately. Now, just before I pass the micro, I would like you to comment and maybe try to explain a little bit. We have from today's news, we have this Smotrich, which is one of these ministers of Netanyahu that is also a settler. He lives in a settlement. He's the finance minister. And he has been doing the already official annexation of the West Bank. But from today, he ordered the lawmakers to proceed with this annexation of the West Bank. Nida, you come from the West Bank. It's your land. You want to comment on what does this mean and what you can see ahead?
Sorry to break it to you, but not to you personally, but to people, but annexation has happened.
Yeah, it's already.
Annexation is there. We see it every day with settlers expanding, attacking Palestinians, taking over their homes, their lands. There's nothing in my mind that says that we're not considered, as far as Israel is concerned, as part of Israel in terms of land, not in terms of people. They don't want us. So they want to annex the land. They don't want to annex the people. And for me, this is just another layer of how the Israelis are trying to enforce some sort of legitimacy through these decisions and through using the fact that Trump is coming to power soon, as if we put a label on it that it's annexed, then that means those people do not exist. There's a legal term that says de facto and de jure. It's de facto annexed. We see it every day. It's just, as a little girl, we used to eat with my family on the veranda and overlooking a hill that was in the past partially owned by families in Bethlehem, in Bet Sahur, my hometown, and in the towns nearby. And I wish I knew that the settlement would become bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Like if I had put a GoPro fast forward, you would see how these settlements start off as, one crazy settler, fanatic, radical, does not represent, and then they get retroactively recognized, and then the settlements get bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's just, for us, there's no doubt that they've been taking the land and they're trying to do everything to push people out of it. And this is just another layer that they think they will get the legitimacy out of. But in our minds, it's okay, so what? Not so what, but in the sense of, like, on the ground, it's been happening, but not much has been done to pressure Israel to stop spreading its cancer, which is settlements.
Okay, so so I will open now for questions.
Hi, I'm Clara. I'm currently studying journalism. I'm actually a big fan of your work, so thank you so much for coming here today.
Thank
and
you.
My question, thank you. So, in fact, my question, since I've just started studying journalism, is what do you think about a journalist has to be impartial kind of rhetoric when it comes to situations that are so extreme, like what is going on in Palestine right now, and when it comes to the genocide? So, like, do you think it's very possible to be impartial?
I mean, when you look the way I look, you're expected to be impartial. But when it comes to what Israel is doing, I worked in organizations where some pieces I've done from Gaza has never made it to air because it was showing normal suffering Palestinians. So I think, and being taught in Birzeit University about ethics, about journalism, about being always impartial, it's hard. It was hard for me to like be able to break free from the rules that we were taught, because it felt like those rules were only enforced on certain people to shut us up. So I still want to be a journalist. I still want to tell you the facts. But even those facts, when I was writing for certain organizations, were being twisted to serve a different narrative. So yeah.
More questions?
Okay, I don't know. It's going to work yeah, first just to echo, yeah, I admire both of your work a lot, and I guess I'm part of that new generation, and I worked in humanitarian aid for around 8 years, and I'm now in climate change, and I guess how do you deal with the fact that none of this is new, right? It's a story of dehumanization for decades, and that this is the result, and it's constant in specific regions of the world like your own. And so how do you break the noise, you know? How do you, because we have access to these images now, it means that it can become a bit banal for some people, you know?
I know.
So how do you break that? It's not a question for you, I guess, it's like a challenge for us that see that.
It's,
like, how do you not banalize it?
There's no answer. Yes, you're right. Like, do we keep broadcasting these images that we cannot see, but people continue to live through? But for us, we don't have the luxury to stop talking about what's happening. It's not something that we can philosophize or try and talk about, because people are getting killed every day. So, but for me, when I try to tell stories, I know that every story is different. Every person has a different experience and pain and narrative, and I try to, as much as possible, push away the cliches of, you know, this is the worst day of her life, she lost her son, but go through the journey with her, if she allows me as a mom, what her son meant and what life did she want him to live, and how that life was cut short. I talk to mothers who say that we want our children to go to the circus, but there's no circus. So this is the reality they're living under, and ultimately this is the path that is enforced on them, which ultimately many times leads to death and pain. So yeah, every time I try to delve into some depth that could bring the audience closer to this story or that story in a different way that they might have not thought about before. But every person has their own story, yes, and it's worth telling. No life is, you know, every life is important and every story is touching. Yeah.
I would like to react to the previous comment, because I don't agree so much that it's a question of dehumanization that has been going on for decades. For me, it's deeper. It's settler colonialism. It's a form of colonialism that aims at doing away with the natives. It's not like the Portuguese colonialism that was extractive colonialism. It's different. But this brings me also to a question. It's, I think Al Jazeera is doing absolutely fundamental work, Alexandra in Portugal as well, the social media also. But then my question is, and I'm also working in that field, what is it that, and the Lisbon Festival is also doing a great work at this occasion, what can a museum do, what can historians do? Because I think the bottom line, it's not just the dehumanization and violence. That's as I see it, that's a symptom of something deeper. And this deeper thing is settler colonialism.
Yes, they don't want the original native people of the land to exist. They want to make their lives so difficult. So if they can't physically kill them, they can kill the life around them. So they would ultimately leave. And you've probably met Palestinians abroad who did not have options but to leave. You know, the refugees have left, but there are people who are being pushed every day, and either it's for economic reasons or political reasons or just looking for a better life. And I remember telling my dad in the second Intifada, like, why don't we leave? Like, it's very terrifying. The war is really scary. We lived through the 40-day siege of the Nativity Church, and we had curfews, and we were able just to go and see our families for 2 hours. By the way, I am proud to say that I did a birthday party from 10 to 12, which was the curfew that was lifted. So we did a party and we celebrated for those 2 hours. But my father was like, listen, we're here because they want us out. And I know by that he means this is our land, we have nowhere else to go, this is our home. But yes, the goal is to push us all out. The goal is to colonize the land, to push out the people. And for you, if you were born there and lived there, okay, you might go elsewhere and live, but this is your home. They have nowhere else to go. So I don't know if I answered your question.
I'd like to thank you, Nida and Alexandra, for not just for the beautiful conversation today, but for all the work that you have been doing. And let me, before I put the question, bring a perspective that I think is a perspective that can bring hope in the middle of all this nightmare in which we are living. You spoke, I think Nida and also Alexandra, you are a source of inspiration for so many people, so many activists, so many people that feel the injustice that is happening in Palestine. And they feel that an important aspect, an important dimension of the injustice is epistemic. It's about knowledge. It's how Israel has managed as a colonial power, as a settler colonial power, to make Palestine completely invisible in the world. Part of the injustice is that the world does not know what happens in Palestine. And I think you both have managed to bring Palestine to people that have never been in Palestine in ways that helps people understand. And this is really important. I think the settler colonial project of Israel worked very well until now because Palestine is somewhere there in the darkness. And the only images that come out in the mainstream media are like the violence, when violence erupts. Nobody knows what exactly is the settler colonial project there. And I think you both have managed in very different ways to actually bring it to the knowledge of the people, what is it? So in that sense, I would like to say, also in response to the question about impartiality, I don't think you can be impartial in the context of colonialism. I think there is some epistemic resistance that everybody could participate in. We cannot participate in the colonial and in the anti-colonial fight there in Palestine. But in the epistemic resistance against colonialism, we are all actually capable of participating. So in that sense, you are a source of inspiration because you give us the tools to resist epistemically what is happening. And your voice is very, very important. I have to say, we were so scared when we woke up that day and understood that we will not hear what is happening in Jenin and Tulkarem and in Tubas and in Selfit and in all these places. So just like, not just to thank you, what I want to put here is a responsibility that is on all of us that are listening to you. You are doing your job in trying to break the willful silence about Palestine. And I think in that we all have a responsibility. Today, either we participate in the epistemic resistance and we bring the reality of Palestine to the world, or we contribute to the willful silence that is an important element in the settler colonial project of Israel. So the question to you now, how would you like us? What do you think we should do more to amplify your voice so that this epistemic resistance is something that really we all can contribute to, so that you're not alone in that fight, you and all the journalists in Palestine, all the journalists that are risking their lives in Gaza, but also all the journalists outside who risk a lot also when they try to amplify the voice. So what do you think? And I don't mean to put an extra responsibility on you because you are doing a lot already, but maybe we can reflect together. What can we do to be on the right side of the epistemic resistance against the Zionist settler colonial project?
I think people need to shout louder and to understand that their silence is costing children and people their lives every day. So every act of choosing where to buy, what to buy, where to invest, who to support, what to talk to, which demonstration to go, which politician to vote for, all of these questions are affecting the lives of millions of people. And I think everyone can choose their way of resisting, but I cannot, and I'm sorry, I cannot help but think if we looked whiter, although I'm white in Palestine, the aunties like me because I'm not, if we were blonde, the equation would have been different, and that hurts a lot, but that puts another responsibility on the audience, because Palestinians are doing everything they can to tell the world what's happening in so many different and creative and whatever social media platform there is, and traditional media and whatever medium there is. I think now it's the responsibility of the world, because history will judge those who stayed silent or those who did not do enough. And yes, there are people who would jump on the wagon when it becomes more of a mainstream issue, like apartheid in South Africa, that people were like, oh, we were against it, or support it before it becomes cool.
Mina, first of all, thank you so much for sharing this amazing testimonial. And my doubt refers to the other side, in this case, the Zionist regime. Is there an dissonant voice into the Israeli media? Because when it started after the October 7th, I started to read Haaretz, but I would like to see, because sometimes as a Brazilian, we have a different perspective from Europeans, and our president contested and suffered a lot, including with an impeachment ameaça, como é que é? A request, an impeachment request. And now my doubt is Israeli society nowadays a monolith, has a monolith view or not? And is there any dissonant voices into the Israeli media?
I'll refer to Alexandra before I just say one thing, because we were having a discussion. You know what? I'll say it after you say what you were going to say.
Sure. Go ahead.
Facts are facts. And if someone wakes up to a fact 1 year later and says, oh, oopsie, I'm not going to upload that.
Yeah.
And this is response to what Alexandra is going to say now about Haaretz also.
Yeah, sure. Discussion in the sense that we were talking about that, not that we disagree about this. But just to let you know, thank you very much for your question. I think it's really a good question. And it's a coincidence because we were talking about this and I was thinking, shall I bring the subject or not? But there are so many things, okay. But just to let you know, I don't know to which extent everyone reads Haaretz, which is, Haaretz is a daily newspaper, a daily newspaper that has an English edition and is the only daily newspaper that has, it's on the left, let's say the left, well, it's a long conversation now because Haaretz has its own many contradictions, inside contradictions, etc., etc. But I don't know if anyone here in this room read the article that was published today in Haaretz. Today, at 2 a.m. in the morning, there was published an article, an opinion column by a columnist called B. Michael. Now, B. Michael is probably the most radical voice that has been writing inside Israeli Jewish society. And today, this columnist, for the first time, so I can see it like as a landmark inside Israeli journalism, for the first time is explaining to the citizens of Israel why Israel is committing genocide. And it's the first time I saw in Haaretz this written like this. So it's really 1 year and more than 1 month after it took, let's put it like this, it took 1 year, 1 month and some days for the main left-wing Israeli newspaper to publish an article, and still with a question mark. If you want, shall I read it a bit just for you to understand what I'm talking about? And I totally agree, of course, with what Nida is saying. So the title of the article is, "Maybe Israel is committing genocide after all?" Question mark. Of course, it's ironic. It's an ironic question mark. It's an ironic title. It's a very short article, very straightforward. He basically says, okay, there are 5 criteria to conclude a genocide. Okay, first criteria, second criteria, third criteria, etc. Israel is performing all the criteria, and he explains why. In very short sentences, there's one criteria that actually Israel is not performing, and this is, I can read you, forcibly transferring children of the group to another group. He says, finally, something that Israel has not done. A pity, maybe taking some children out of the hell we created for them would have saved their lives. But he doesn't get a check mark. Of the 5 criteria for genocide, we have performed 4 exemplarily. That's a fine score, especially when the execution of one of the 5 sections, it doesn't matter which one, is enough to be considered a perpetrator. So this was published today, and this maybe implies a lot of consequences. There is not a peace camp in Israel. There is not a minority even of Israelis that we can consider that are protesting against genocide. There is a tiny group of people. We cannot consider them a minority, a tiny group of people that are risking their lives, that are acting also with their bodies to protect Palestinians, that are refusing to serve in the army, that are facing death traps, and they themselves are being persecuted, they are being injured and killed, okay? So it's a tiny group of people. But now you have this on a newspaper, and all the newspaper would be associated with this man. I think it's the first time that you not only have one person saying something, it's a whole newspaper, and it's symbolic. So
Yeah,
just to,
exactly.
of course,
I think
but
too
I
much
totally
symbolism
agree.
in our lives, but yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's not
enough. It's not enough.
It's not enough. But
And you hear incitement by Israeli journalists. You see Israeli journalists going to the war front in Gaza and pressing the button that would bomb a house. And that's impartial, of course, because...
It happened with a very well-known star of the Israeli television in Lebanon. Okay, so this star of the Israeli television, he was invited by the army to press a button to explode a building in Lebanon. And he was proud of it.
I just want to say that I'm not ashamed to say that I do not follow Israeli media as much as you think. We see their actions on the ground, and sometimes it makes you boil. In addition to what you see on the ground, that you see the narrative being spun, and you see how they talk about you, and it's just, I don't have that much energy. Like, I don't need that anger in my life. I already have enough.
Thank you. First of all, praise your resistance. I think it's very inspiring for all of us. It might be a bit of a naive question because I know it's still happening. We don't know when it's, finishing, but we are all very hopeful that this all ends, of course. And I would like to know, what is your hope or expectation from a political standpoint? What is the political resolution for Palestine after all this? Because we know it's so difficult with, there are so many nations that don't even recognize the state of Palestine in the first place. It's a broken nation as of now, right? Because people are just, damaged. But if we think about the solution for this and how can you recover as a country, what is your view and expectation on the political resolution?
I don't know. I really don't know. And for me, the priority now is when the war ends, we need to grieve. We need to have the chance to cry. We need to have the chance to treat the injured and move on. Not move on, I mean move forward, because you can't move on from that. But I am the most pessimistic person after the war you'd see, maybe. So maybe I'm coming from despair, maybe I'm coming from trauma, maybe I'm coming from deep disappointment in the world that I don't know what's going to happen. Like, for me, I don't see a political future with Trump now coming to power that sees us having an independent state. Yes, he talks about finishing the war, but maybe we'll get finished with it, I don't know. I mean, in the sense of what politically they're trying to do to the cause. All I know is that these are the people of the land, and they have nowhere else to go, and they will stay, and they will keep resisting. Their dreams are just simple, just like any other human being. When you go from Ramallah to Bethlehem, which is where my parents live, you don't have to think about the checkpoints and how many settlers that could attack you, and it's just a 1 and 15 minutes away. And if it wasn't, if we were able to go through Jerusalem, it would have been even much of a shorter journey. So you're talking about a day-to-day, very small things in our lives that we're still striving. Me and my friend were like, imagine if we did not have settlements And we were able to move freely between Ramallah and Bethlehem and no checkpoints, and we can just be. These are the dreams that we're rendered to dream right now because of how depressing and alarming the situation is.
Falar em português. Uma das causas que sempre uniu o mundo árabe foi precisamente a causa palestiniana. Eu, sinceramente, não vi desta vez, como vi, por exemplo, estudei em 48, digamos, a reação e inclusivamente, mais tarde, a reação armada, de facto, quando a guerra do Yom Kippur, não vi, de facto, digamos, o lobby árabe ter, digamos, quando esta é uma situação muito mais gravosa e de facto não vi o lobby árabe, digamos, reagir em conjunto e ter uma força como outras situações teve. Eu, de facto, no dia 7, digamos, estava no Líbano, na altura não sabia o que é que se passava, percebi vários refugiados, de facto, digamos, a confraternizarem, de facto, nas ruas, com motos, e percebi que, de facto, digamos, a extensão, aliás, até porque viajei em vários países árabes e estive no West Bank, digamos, a quantidade de refugiados que, de facto, de outras situações, os países árabes têm. Será esse um dos motivos que, de facto, inclusive a questão do Egito, que, de facto, não reagiram como eu esperaria que reagissem, de facto, a esta situação. O Erdogan, de facto, tentou mostrar uma certa, digamos, representar a voz árabe, mas, de facto, acho que foi muito tenue.
Okay, just to summarize for Nida, it's a question about the Arab countries, the reaction or the lack of reaction or unity from the Arab countries. So, I don't know your name. Was in Lebanon when the 7th October happened. Well, the amount of refugees can be one explanation. What do you think it's the explanation for this time when the situation is so much? Yes.
Why they're not standing with us? He means.
What? First, if you agree, there is a lack of reaction, and why? Yeah.
I don't think that Palestinians have doubt that the hearts and minds of the Arab people are with them. You go anywhere and you see people like, oh, Palestine, we love you. They were raised to love Palestine, to understand the story of dispossession and exodus and displacement that happened to us. And I think that if you ask anyone in Palestine, they would tell you it's the regimes that failed them, it's the leaders who are trying to stay in power at the expense of the aspirations and dreams and wants of their people. And that's why there has been a huge disappointment, which is a very light word to describe how Palestinians felt, if not even betrayal, when some Arab countries decided to normalize relations with Israel. That was like a stab in the back of Palestinians. But again, they know that the hearts and minds of people are with them. Yes, there might be issues here and there, but even, I mean, it's sad to say, but even in Ramallah we had suppression of demonstrations that were supportive of Gaza, and it aches my soul to say that, but that gives you an idea about the regimes and about the difference between the leadership and the people now.
You want to comment anything specifically about Egypt, because your question also included Egypt. You want to say anything about
every
Egypt?
time I met an Egyptian, they're like, "Free Palestine, we love you, Jerusalem is ours." I mean, it's not a secret that the gap between the regimes, and I don't want to name names, and the people.
Maybe I'll translate it if I need.
Eu penso que a questão era um pouco mais, alargando um pouco, era mais geopolítica. Na altura, eu lembro que li um livro de John Meshmer e Stephen Halt, que era a propósito do lobby israelita nos Estados Unidos. E, de facto, eles, na altura, falavam, digamos, com dados muito concretos, digamos, não era a teoria da conspiração, sobre, digamos, que os serviços secretos, na altura, israelitas, ou seja, a Mossad, tinha, digamos, informado acerca das armas, supostamente, de destruição que o Iraque tinha. E, de facto, o Iraque era, de facto, o grande inimigo, na altura, de Israel. O Irão já surgiu há bastante tempo como inimigo. Neste momento, de facto, inclusivamente, até existe, de facto, um suposto, um atentado previsto do Irão ao Trump. Será que consideras que o próximo, digamos, da Hidra, que eu considero a Hidra, de facto, de Israel, irá atingir, de facto, o Irão? Estamos a falar num conflito direto. Muito brevemente.
A questão é exatamente qual?
A questão é se, de facto, ela considera, de facto, a perspectiva, de facto, de um conflito mais alargado, digamos, com o Irão.
If the question is if you think it's possible a wider conflict with Iran, because he thinks it's very probable. That is the question.
Yeah, I'm not your expert on Iran. I'm sorry. But the question is, what's why there's a conflict?
It was more a geopolitical question.
Yes, more geopolitical.
As explained in the beginning, I don't know if it will be the correct question for a reporter. But the question is if you think it's probable that it's going to happen a wider conflict with Iran. That is the question?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do not think so. Again, I'm not your expert, but I think that the sentiment in Palestine is that while Iran has been supporting certain Palestinian groups, Iran has also its own agendas and its own diplomatic ways and thoughts and interests that people were hopeful that Iran would back the Palestinians more, and they felt that they were disappointed. This is the sentiment that I was feeling, but to claim that I can analyze, I know I don't.
More questions for Nida? Yeah. Shad?
I am very happy to see two women that I admire a lot being next to each other and see the connection between my two places, Palestine and Portugal, at the same time. I don't know what to do.
Shout louder.
Yeah, I can shout. We
yes.
can shout. So what I want to say is I was thinking about this place that we Palestinians live between hope and bombs, between dream and death. And I was thinking about you too, because you, Alexandra, buys the tickets when she has no funds to go to Palestine because 7th of October happened. You keep going to Jenin and Tul Karim despite everything. And there is a moment that you said that I don't know what is the point. And I want to go to this point of what is the point. And still, we keep doing what we are doing. And this is all of us, not all of us Palestinians, but all of us activists, all of us people who are doing film festival and putting Palestine in the program. So what is the point and why? And this is a question I ask myself every day when I wake up in the morning. Why do we keep doing what we are doing? And my question is, for you, is what is the point, as you said it, why you keep doing what you're doing?
When I was talking to my niece, and I even posted that video, although I don't like posting videos of children, but she's 6 years old. And I remember that when I was going to Jenin, every time she says, no, Jenin, no, because when she was 4, she knows that the evil people, and that's her wording of what happened, shot Shireen. She still wakes up, or not even wakes up, when she goes to sleep, she still tells her mom, I'm sad, why did they kill Shireen? And she told me that when I asked her, like, why do you feel nervous when I go there? She said, sometimes I feel nervous, sometimes I feel scared, sometimes I feel anxious. Words I only just in the past 5 years learned the difference of. But for me, it's for her and her baby sister who is 4 months old. I mean, they're the drive. They're beautiful girls. I think Gigi, my niece, will be the next Yasmin Hamdan. She's nice on stage, and she likes to sing, and I'm doing what I'm doing because she's proud of me, and I want her to keep being proud, and I want her to have a beautiful life and to be free. I guess that's why we do what we do. But on a not so personal note, but yes, the personal is part of us. It's because of the people you meet on a daily life, and you see them cooking the most delicious food and making you bread and inviting you with a very hospitable society, very welcoming. We love people. And by the way, I felt that sentiment here also in Portugal as well. Very nice, warm people. And it's that so we can all live in harmony and have silly fights, not like all be stressed and worried about the future and the next day and the next raid and the next electricity cut. I want to fight with my neighbors like casually over other things, over noise and have more first world problems, I guess, yeah.
I think I can shout.
Yes. We need more people to shout for Palestine.
First of all, thank you so much. Thank you, Captain Dubai, for showing me. Since we're here listening to what you have to say, and you know Palestine better than any of us, what would you say, and this is a hard question, before the war, what did Palestine did not do?
What do you mean, the Palestinians?
Yes.
I think they did not unite. Maybe that aches me, that the external powers and the external division has succeeded to instill division amongst Palestinians. But when I read about what other colonial powers did, is that how they instilled division in so many different ways. I understand why we are the way we are, but maybe we could have rose beyond those pressures and plans against us. I think we're just like any other society. We have a lot that we can do, but we are not free to talk about these things. Like, I want to discuss women's rights, and I want to fight for fair wages, and I want all these, social justice issues. But give us the time, just give us the chance to move. But when you are worried about what you're going to feed your family the next day, or if they can go to school and come back safely, how are they going to think otherwise but survival? And we've been really running on survival mode for so long that I feel like we just need a break. And instead of a break, we had a burst, big blow-up explosion. But I mean, anyone in that situation would blow up. So again, the unity thing is, for me, was one of the things that it aches me that we were divided.
Good evening. First of all, thank you very much for being here. I think that that conversation was very interesting and very interesting and very important to discuss this issue. I have some questions to make to Nida. First of all, do you consider that the neo-colonial thought on the Western media are contributing to the dehumanizing image that some Europeans have about the Palestinian people? Because sometimes I read in the social media commentary to some news about Palestine that the fault is from Hamas, and Israel it's a saint, it's poor people. They were killed in 7 October, but anyone thought about the Palestinians that were killed after that, and this humanizing image, it's very unfortunately very present in the social media. This is the first question. The second question,
do we answer one by one? Because I already forgot. For me, I think, if I understood your question correctly, that Europe has to deal with its own issues, and it's not my problem as a Palestinian what Europe has done to the Jews. It's not something I should be paying the price for, and I think it's wrong to put that pressure on me to deal with that guilt or that issue or that pain. So just because you have this dehumanization, it's not my fault. And again, we strive every day to show our humanity, but I mean, it should be evident that we are just like any other nation. And we've seen it in the way the Western media dealt with Ukraine and dealt with Palestine. I mean, it was self-explanatory how the media was defending people's right to resist the occupation and carry arms and battle the invaders and the occupiers, while they do not talk about Palestine in the same framing or context.
Thank you very much. I think you're right, because Ukraine and Palestine were treated differently by the Western media. So I think that's a great example. Another question that I have, it's about the close of the United Nations office in Palestine, ordered by the Israeli Knesset. Do you consider important the work between? Do you consider important the work between journalists and humanitarian associations in the context of war?
I think what's happening now is just trying to silence anyone who utters the words humanitarian law, international human law, anything that has to do with Israeli violations. In, whether you are UN or whether you are journalist, you're just being told to shut up. And that's part of why Israel has been attacking the UN for years and years. It's not new. We have UN resolutions that have been passed by the Security Council that have not been implemented either. And then you had still Israel attacking the Special Rapporteur, or attacking the UNRWA, or trying to end the story of refugees once and for all. Again, it's like the issue of the annexation. It's happening on the ground anyways. It's just they like to, think that they are enshrining it just because they passed a law. But with the issue of the UNRWA, it's definitely a very dangerous one. And the question is, again, what's the world going to do while the situation keeps getting from one worse to another?
Hello, Nida. Hello, Alexandra. Thank you for sharing your experience. Just because you were mentioning lack of unity, Arafat died 20 years ago today, yesterday, I mean. Do you think you're lacking a political figurehead like Arafat? And if you know anyone, can you let us know who he is before he becomes mainstream? Thank you.
Yeah, once I know, I'll tell you, but it's definitely going to be a woman. But yes, we are lacking leadership, not just in the sense of the head of the state. We are talking about the layer and the leadership levels when it comes to the political parties and the street and the leadership around the president, as I want to say. But this has been, unfortunately, they've been systemically pushed out of the system. We still have some really good examples of good ambassadors. For example, we were talking yesterday about our ambassador to the UK, Hussam Zumlot. He's been like a very active and nationalistic Palestinian figure, talking to Western and to European countries about Palestine. It's a hard question. I have to think more about it, but I'll let you know. I do a lot of what do you call them, binge shopping, shopping sprees, and I will be getting or expecting the Ministry of Tourism in Portugal to send me a thank you for the investments in the. So yeah, I shop, I travel when I can, and I try to disconnect. It's very hard. It usually does not work in the beginning, and I have my good friends shouting to silence the WhatsApp groups and the news, and you know, I try to disconnect. And then I have these two nieces of mine, so this is therapy for free. But I don't think going through all of that we're sane.